everybody, and welcome to Daily Dev Club, episode 9 for Monday, the 20th of May 2019. Today we're going to hop back into our serverless stats project, back into the React front end that we started last week, and we're going to turn the stats that we're pulling in, at the minute we're just rendering out as fairly boring plain text, and we're going to get graphical with it using Chart.js to actually sort of visualize those stats and make it a lot more appealing. So nothing says Monday Fun Day quite like doing some charts and graphs. So without further ado, let's get into the code. Okay, so previously on Daily Dev Club, we had our React front end that we set up for our serverless statistics app, just to pull in some of the stats. And start to process them in interesting ways to find things like most popular URLs, most popular browsers, unique visitors. But obviously it'd be nicer to sort of visualize those to make it easier to sort of digest those at a glance. And so for that we can use some charts and graphs. So we're going to have a look at Chart.js. And there's a cool library for implementing that here within React. So we're going to get started by adding that in, and then hooking some of these stats and data things up to those charts to see how we can make those look interesting and how we can make them sort of leap off the page rather than just having this sort of wall of text here. So first thing we'll do then is we're going to add in the libraries we need. So that's the React Chart.js library, version 2, and that doesn't actually include Chart.js as a dependency, it said now, so we'll add that in as well. So we'll let those install. Great, and so let's dive in. So we have our requests here, and we calculate all our data here based on the raw data. So our stats are unique sort of data points, I guess you could say. And so I guess what we'll do now is we set up another component. So it's in there, isn't it? So let's set up a new component. And we'll call this, let's have this, we have one for each of these. Let's start with the browsers, popular browsers. Okay. Use that as a base, and that out. That's going to be our component name. Okay, and our state is going to be popular browsers, which is going to come from our, we'll pass that in from our request component. There we go. Just do that like that, look. Use the shorthand for that. Okay, so we don't need to make the request here because that'll be happening with the component getting passed in. Okay. There. Right, so in our render now we are going to have start with an empty fragment and go from there. So there's our shell component. Okay, so we are going to need to import the chart we want. So for popular browsers I think we'd use a pie chart because that's very visual. We can see which browser has the lion's share, that sort of stuff. So we import pie chart, Chart.js 2, and that's what we're going to render here, the pie component. And we're going to pass in our data. So if we do state data, and we'll switch this up a bit. So we're going to have our data needs to be in this sort of format. So it's going to be an object with a key with labels, with a label for each of the sort of different sets of data, and then within that we're going to want data sets. We just have a single data set with a data key with the multiple data points and the values, and then you can set the colours. Let's see what happens if we don't set the colours, if it just picks some random ones for us to begin with, and then we can work on that afterwards. So these two obviously need to have the same, they're going to have the same length basically. So the labels is effectively going to be our browser names, and the data will be the values. So if we have a look, so going back to what we have already, obviously we sort of have that already. We have on the browsers, we've got the user agent there as a key, and then the value is the count. So if we get that in as a prop, so we're going to have that in, won't we? Props.popular browsers. Hang on a sec. That one, yeah. So we have that in as popular props.popular browsers. That's easy to say, and we're going to want to process that. So if we do object keys there, that's the easiest way to do it, and then we can do object values props.browsers there, because we've done the hard work in processing it in here. So before we forget, let's make sure where we're referencing that component. So import it up here, popular browsers, capital from there, and then we'll render this just under the list of popular browsers here. So I need to make sure we're passing in, we'll just call the prop browsers. We'll do this state most popular browsers. And then here, it's just going to be browsers. In there. Tidy that up, and so in our state we don't actually really need to keep the raw data, we just need our process data now for our chart, where we have the labels and the values. Put that together and tidy that up a bit. Okay. So let's see how that works now. So we can see we have a pie chart here. And we've got our values, Firefox, IE, and the Chrome user agent 10, 1 and 2, which obviously stacks up with what we have here. It hasn't picked any colours for us, so then they're not shaded, so let's have a look at that next. So we can set within this bit here, there's an additional key for that, so background colours, and again that's going to be an array, and we've got the same length as we've got a colour for each one of these. So let's just do, for the minute, let's just do red, green, blue. Okay, that didn't work, let's have a look. So let's have a look at these background colours. Oh, I see, no, okay, so that goes in the... Okay, so that structure's oh no, we have labels, data sets, and then label for the data set. Background, oh, it's bar chart. Let's have a quick look at the pie chart example. Background colour. Colour, not colours. Let's see if that makes a difference. There we go. So red, green, and blue. Now, if we provide more colours than that, I don't know if it randomises or just takes them. So if we had another value in there, what do we have less? But obviously, we don't know necessarily how many values are going to be in there. So we want, yeah. So I guess we can pass a whole bunch of colours to it. And then it will use however many it needs based on the different values. So, okay, green and red. So that was pretty easy. And you can see it animates nicely when it sort of loads up the data as well, which is pretty good. Let's maybe make it a little bit smaller because that's pretty huge at the minute. So. Okay, Let's try. It's still coming in pretty big. So we just want a way to control the overall size of the chart, that we can fit more than one on there and have a sort of dashboard of the different charts. Okay, that seems to work a bit better. Lose that from there. Maybe a bit small now. Let's try that. Okay, so there we go. So that works pretty nicely. Now we can just do the same thing for our URLs. We'll copy the component here. Obviously, we could just wrap this up in a single component really, because they're going to work pretty much exactly the same way. But we'll copy it for now. That will just allow us to then customize it a little bit if we want to do different things to the browsers and the URLs eventually. But for now, we'll just do this. Pass in our URLs prop. So over to requests. We'll make sure we import that component as well. And we'll do the same as we did before. So underneath the URLs in here, popular URLs, this.state, the most popular URLs, which we already sort of calculated and worked out. So let's have a quick look at that. And there we have the URLs as well. So that's pretty nice. And Chart.js obviously comes with some handy stuff by default, so you can click on the axes to hide and show things, so you can see what the difference is without without certain axes on there, that sort of stuff. So that works pretty nice. Okay, so that's our pie charts in, and it just gives you an at-a-glance view. Very easy to see, you know, dominant browsers or dominant URLs, that sort of stuff. What would be quite good is to be able to visualize the unique visitors now, and obviously rather than just being a single count unique visitors all time, it'd be good to say see the unique visitors for the last 7 days, for example. So that's going to require a bar chart, but it's also going to require us to do a little bit more processing than we're currently doing. So the way we were doing the unique visitors was similar to the popular URLs and popular browsers, in as much as we were reducing that down. We have our reduce stats function, where we reduce it down based on an attribute, and then we count how many have that same attribute. Obviously for unique visitors that was the IP address, and what we want to do is actually have that be based on the IP, sort of per day, and then within that have the IP address. So if we reduce the stats down, let's just log out of data so I can refresh myself on what the structure is, and then we can get to playing with it a little bit to see what's going to work the best. So cool thing with the inspector in Chrome, we can store that as a temporary array, and then we can play around with it down here. So if we can make that any bigger, there we go. So we have our data here, we've got 14 data points. That's our raw stats data. We have our IP address, and the bits we care about is going to be that, and also the date. So we want to really pass the date, which we can do like that, and then we're going to want to get, let's have a look. Is the date just the date or the time zone? The date's that. Okay, so what else have we got to work with on here? So okay, for each one we're going to want to get the date then. And we want to get year. So we could rope in something like moment.js for better formatting here, but as our needs are fairly simple, we're not really formatting for the user to see it. We just are really formatting for a unique key per the date, just as a way of sort of filtering and segmenting. Which one is it there? Class. Just do that so it looks better, but yeah. No, sorry, 1900. 1900, okay. So we have our unique key. So that's our date key. So let's start to put this back into the code here. So when we're processing that, we're going to have our data, and we're going to want to reduce that down. And so we're going to want a structure similar to sort of that, and then the count of unique visitors, so 4, 15, 2, that sort of thing. That way when we display it in the bar chart, we can have the dates on the bottom, and obviously the bar extending upward based on the value. That would be the best structure for it, and that should be relatively straightforward to plug into Chart.js then. So to do that, we're going to want to make sure that our hash iterator takes our date key, so our stat, requested at new date, like we did in our console, and then our date key, which is that one, in there. Now we can't just add it as a sum though, so like we did in our reduce function before, where we checking whether that exists, and then initializing if it doesn't, and then just adding to the count. So that would work for request filter, segmented by date, the overall requests, that will work, but it won't work for the IP addresses, the unique visitors, because we're not grouping by IP then. So in reality, what we're probably going to need to actually do is something more like this, and sort of do a sub reduce on it, where we're then also grouping by the IPs underneath each day. And then when it comes to displaying the data, what we're actually doing is then we're ignoring those values essentially, and just taking the IP address, the amount of them. So I guess actually, if we're not going to use that, we can probably do it like this. And then we can use the length of that when we come to do the chart. Okay, so let's do it that way. So if the iteration doesn't exist for that particular key, we're going to initialize it, which is going to be an empty array. And then we're going to want to say if index of and this particular IP address in the stack. And if that equals -1, i.e. so if our IP address isn't found in that array for that date, i.e. we haven't yet logged the IP address as a unique visitor for that date, then we're going to push that in to the array. And we can lose that because we're not doing that anymore, and we'll return it. So in that way, we should be able to reduce our data down. So let's have a quick look. We should be able to run this in here. There's a data here. So let's try that in here and see what we get back. Okay, let's have a look at our structure and see if it matches what we wanted. Yes, it does, although we want to strip out the undefined. So similar to what we did here. We're just going to go if stat.ip address it's not defined, we're just going to return the iterator straight off the bat. So we can carry on iterating, but we're not interested in that particular value. Let's try again. There we have it. Okay, so you can see we've got 2 uniques on each day. Cool. Okay, so now if we up here we'll say holds unique visitors we'll call that unique visitors per day, and we're going to need another component now to render our bar chart. So we'll copy that one as a base and we'll call it unique visitors per day. And we're going to want a bar chart instead of a pie chart this time. Let's just rename this. Ready to go. And so we're going to get our prop in with our data in that format there, up here. And so our labels are going to be the keys. So we might yet want to rope in moment.js actually, because we are going to end up displaying those, and then we can pass it and display it sort of nicely as, you know, Thursday the whatever of May and that sort of stuff. You know, we can then display nicely formatted dates on the axes. But for now that'll do. And then we've got the values is going to be the length. So here we've got props of unique visitors per day. They're the values. If we just do this, so each one's an array, and we actually just want the length. And that's our data. We'll set the background colours ready to go, and we'll see how that looks. Then we'll change this to a bar chart, and we'll see what that does for us. Let's put this down. Let me remove that. So up in here, and we need to pass that in, of course, because we're not passing it in currently. So down. Oh yeah, we've got to import the component and actually show it. Our unique visitors per day component, and we'll pop that under unique visitors up here with our prop. So let's pop that in the state so we can use that. Pass that through to our component down here. It should finish hooking everything up for us. Okay, let's refresh that and let's have a look. Okay, so here is our bar chart. So unique visitors per day, we have 2 on each day. You see it's using different colours, which is good. So we just would need to give that axes a name ideally. Let's go back to the bar chart and have a look at the configuration there, see what else we can do with it. So the label, maybe set the label, so there we go, so that's set. And now our bar chart makes a lot more sense. So obviously this is fairly even, but over time you could then have a whole bunch of different values. We could show the last 7 days and be able to see the spikes as you have days with more visitors and days with less. So that'd be pretty good. So you can see we've taken our stats we've been collecting, and now with Chart.js and the React Chart.js sort of wrapper around Chart.js, we've been able to start making these stats a lot more visual and a lot more appealing. And so there we have it, some nice charts for our front end now, making things look a little bit nicer and enabling us to visualize that data at a glance a lot more easily. So we'll build on that in the next episode by adding some filters, so that as we have more data over time we can start to sort of break that down and find very specific sort of data points we want to look at, such as, you know, what was the most popular browser of the last 3 months, or what was the most popular URL in the last week. And then our sort of serverless stats app actually can sort of start to answer questions for you when you start to drop it in to use and to track web properties. It can actually be useful to find out answers to analytic sort of questions you might have about your site. So at that point it becomes a lot more useful. So we'll move on to that next. But I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, comments and feedback in the comments below would be great. And if you liked it, please hit that subscribe button. And I'll hopefully see you all back tomorrow for the next episode of Daily Dev Club. Peace out.